Well, welcome everybody. This is a collaboration between NSPN, National Science Policy Network. I'm the CEO, T'Pring Michelle Pequato, and I am so happy to have our guests here today from JSPG, the Journal of Science Policy and Governance, Julianne and Hannah. So we spoke a year ago when Julianne was newly selected as the CEO of CCST, and I was newly selected as the CEO of NSPN, and we are back again a year later. I'm only going to ask us one question. Um, what do you think the difference is between the volume of people, early career folks, wanting to publish their research? What's the volume and the urgency that we have seen change from just a short year ago in 2024 to 2025? Do you see any at all? What are your thoughts on that? And then I'll share mine.
We are seeing greater interest in those who are submitting manuscripts, reaching out to us. We have quite a few, unsolicited emails from people around the world, not just in the US, reaching out to inquire about the process and whether they can chat to, someone on the editorial board just to learn more about the selection process. While we wish circumstances weren't so harsh in the STEM fields and settings across US universities and laboratories, we are glad to be a platform that people reach to step up their engagement with science and tech policy.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're seeing and hearing from as well as people are eager to take our writing classes and learn where their work not only goes into their academic, pure academic, on cardiology or physics or water pollution, but also how can we get it into the hands and the understanding of elected officials and other decision makers. So it's not only just your state or local or federal elected officials, but also other decision makers that are, industry professionals. And we're seeing more and more of that as well, which, it could be the sign of the times, but it also could be the sign of we in the science policy ecosystem are doing our jobs of getting out the word that it is so important, not just to publish, but to also be, you know, uh, sensitive to publishing in a journal isn't the only way that your work is going to be read and heard and understood. It takes a lot of different aspects before you can get something that's really important out into the world and implemented. So I'm really excited to have this collaboration with you. I think you guys are wonderful and you are filling a gap that's so needed in our community is where we can publish on our research impacts and actionable items in a variety of ways. So I'm going to turn it over to you because I know that there's some details that the audience wants to know how they can actually get stuff published. So thank you so much for joining us today and take it from here.
All right. Hannah, would you like to introduce yourself? And I'll do so and lead right into orienting toward JSPG.
Sure. Hi everyone. Thank you so much for joining. It's really great to see where folks are joining us from and kind of get a sense of the audience that we have here today. I'm Hannah Fry. I am with JSPG as the Director of Programs and Events. So I just realized I just came from a higher ed meeting, so I'm wearing my MIT pin, but during the day, I am a senior policy advisor with MIT in our Washington, D.C. office. But I'm here today representing my role with the JSPG, which I'm really excited to tell you all about as the JSPG's current Director of Programs and Events. A little bit of an intro about me. I've been with JSPG about like 1.5, 2 years now or so. I also, I think for me, I became very interested in the work of the Journal of Science Policy and Governance because when I was a graduate student back in the day, the JSPG was a really great outlet for me to get some of my ideas out there on science policy and to how scientists can engage with policymakers. And so I think it's a really great platform for being able to give trainees that opportunity to say, I can put my ideas out there and I can take it with me. Throughout my career to say, like, I've put these ideas publicly, they're online, they are in a peer-reviewed journal, and that can really be a powerful platform, especially for people just getting started in this space. Like I said, I work for MIT in my day job, working with policymakers and being that bridge between our scientists, our faculty, and our students, and folks here in Washington, D.C. And in a previous life was a neuroscientist and a STEM trainee, like I see many people in the audience are as well. So, Julianne, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. So yes, like both Hannah and T'Pring, I trained up as a neuroscientist, graduated with my PhD from the University of Heidelberg in Germany, master's degree from medical school at University of California, San Diego. I've been the CEO of JSPG for 2 years now. As I imagine most of you know, JSPG is an entirely volunteer-run organization. Hence the reason that Hannah and I both have a day job. I happen to be the CEO of the California Council on Science and Technology. We effectively function as the State Academy of Sciences, bridging the worlds of STEM and public policy here in the California capital of Sacramento. Happy to just dive right in. So for those of you unfamiliar with JSPG, thank you so much, Hannah. We are a 13-year-old international nonprofit 501c3 organization. Once again, entirely volunteer-led. We were created by Max Bronstein, very recently staff within the White House Office of Science and Technology Policy. As far as we know, the only academic journal exclusively dedicated to advancing the professions of early career professionals, fellows, and students in the science and technology policy world. We are very, very, very proud of that. We are also an open access journal in that, right, no dollars need to be submitted in order to have your manuscript reviewed by our extraordinary editorial board of around 35, mostly early career professionals, students, and fellows. So we're truly representing the community we seek to serve. We are proudly independent. We are nonpartisan, of course. We function not only here in the US, but also in countries around the world at both the international, regional, national, and state and local levels. We are open to innovations in science and tech policy, publishing of all sorts. Hannah, in order to give our audience some variety, would you like to take on the presentation from here on?
Sure, happy to. So first of all, before we dive a little bit into the nitty-gritty of like, I have a paper I'm really interested in publishing at JSPG, wanted to also flag some other ways to get involved with JSPG, including, we have writing workshops and training. I'll get a little bit into this later on in the presentation, but we had our newest issue come out. So looking forward to being able to highlight some of those authors in some upcoming events as well. But I think one of the things we really wanted to put the word out, Julianne mentioned we are an all volunteer run organization and we are looking for people. So if you are interested in working with JSPG as a director of operations, director of programs and events, I am currently looking to pass on my own role onto someone. I'm currently stepping up into increased responsibilities in my day job. So if you are really interested in meeting new people in the science policy space, and being able to highlight some of their work, please reach out to me. Would love to see someone really eager to take on this role, take the baton from me on this. We're also looking for a director of communications. Julianne, do you want to talk a little bit about some of those roles?
Yes, happy to. And I just placed in the chat the application form that will be open until August 15th. So our director of operations manages the day-to-day coordination of staff and access to our digital platforms. The connection with Crossref, where every manuscript receives its own unique identifier, right, for access right across platforms. Our director of programs and events, right, you've heard from Hannah, and I'm sure she'd be happy to answer any further questions. And then our, director of communications is has to be a fearless person who just jumps into all the various approaches to delivering our message and opportunities and bringing folks together across all of our activities and efforts. So pretty self-explanatory, but more than happy to provide any further details. And you can always go to our website where we have the folks who are in those current positions, right? Reach out to them as well. We're all a pretty friendly bunch.
And I will sweeten the deal. So, on behalf of NSPN, I really believe that this is such an important organization for you to volunteer your time to make sure that it is going, that we will offer for those that are on the line right now. If you apply, simply applying, with a strong application, not just words filled in. I will collect those names and you will receive a complimentary certificate for writing. We have a writing class happening in the end of November, 2 opportunities, so 2 sessions. So you will get that for applying and being able to volunteer for this opportunity, a free writing class. So please take
What a way to sweeten that deal. Thank you so much.
It's always such a privilege to bring to partner. Thank you for that support.
And then, also just wanted to flag that in addition to, those like hands-on roles that we're going to have, if it, tune in, we have recordings posted online of past webinars and panels that we've hosted on professional development, as well as also if you are interested in working, not just on a staff role, but if you would be interested in working with our editorial board. I know that they're always looking for new people to be editors with our editorial board as well. And then, also what we do, we also host conference panels, media engagement. So if you are interested in helping out with JSPG or getting involved in some of these things, let us know, and we would love to have you. So a little bit, just wanted to lay some groundwork on, especially because we had our new issue come out last month of what are we going to be looking for in future issues? What do papers look like that are published in JSPG? So first of all, we accept a range of formats. I think quite often we get, policy memos, policy briefs, white papers, these sorts of articles, op-eds, original research. But, we're open to other formats. If you have a fact sheet that you put together that you think was really informative, if you have technology assessments or policy analyses, workshop reports, book reviews. I actually mentioned this to an intern who's working in my office. She was like, "Oh, I read this book." I was like, "You want to write a book review of it?" Like, so we're very open to formats of high quality work that folks in the science policy community might be interested in publishing with JSPG. If you have a question about a format that for one of our issues, feel free to reach out, and someone on our editorial team is certainly able to help answer any questions. And then who can publish? I think one of the things that was very common in the publishing sphere is, you need a senior a PI or someone on there, one of the things that we really pride ourselves at JSPG on is being very focused on people who are early in their careers, who are trainees, people who made recent career transitions into science policy. We really want to highlight the work of these people. So we are currently have criteria that half of the authors must either be current students or recent graduates, postdoctoral associates or recent postdocs, current policy fellows, early career professionals who are within that first 10-year window of their professional work. And we also are not just a US-based organization. We are an international journal. So we really want submissions from people around the world on policy issues that are affecting their home countries, their home regions, beyond just, but I think, Julianne and I were both here in the States, but we were looking for that global perspective in these articles. We're also looking for a wide range of disciplines and backgrounds. We are not, I think our discipline in JSPG is on the intersection of science, society, and governance. If you are working on or if you are wanting to write about something that's at that intersection, it can be on any host of scientific disciplines or engineering or some medical backgrounds. And then, senior authors can be included on your author list, but we do require that if you're someone who's more senior in their career and you want to publish with JSPG, we do want those trainees and early career folks to be front and center in articles written for JSPG. So we require that senior individuals will need to that we need our junior folks or people who meet those criteria above to be listed as primary authors. And then at least half of authors must fit this eligibility criteria. So this is all on our website, but I just wanted to really make that point for folks here on the call. We are a trainee and early career focused journal to make sure that folks who are at that career stage have a platform for them to get their ideas across. And then a little bit about what is the publishing process at JSPG. So our next issue deadline is coming up in October. Julianne, am I correct on that?
We pushed it to December 5th.
Push it December 5th. Never mind. So
more time.
More time for folks to get their ideas and get their papers put together. And then I took this great image from our current outgoing editor-in-chief, Andy Sanchez, so he gets credit for it. But the process of JSPG, we are a peer-reviewed journal, and I think as someone who published with JSPG in the past, I can say it's a very collaborative process that I went through with the editor that I was working with, of being able to go through the initial review, go through editing stages, and get that feedback from the editors. So it's if you are accepted to publish in JSPG, there's that back and forth on helping make sure that your written work is going to be ready for publishing in JSPG. And then this is on our website too, but I just wanted to go over some of the, what are we looking for in articles that are going to be published in JSPG? So timeliness is a big one because we want to make sure that we're publishing articles that people are going to be interested to read. Is it relevant to current policy, or is this kind of a front and center issue in current policy and scientific debates? Is it clear? Is it clearly written? Style, is it appropriate publication style? And we have outlined on our website what this looks like. You can also look back at recent publications to see what sort of writing style they're written in. We're also looking for relevance to across society at large. So this could be relevant to a state or a local government or federal or an international or global policy. We're looking across the spectrum, but we're looking for articles that are really focused at that intersection of science, society, and governance. Next, also, what kind of arguments are you making in your article? Is it a problem that can be clearly addressed and identified? You want to make sure that you're identifying, here's a problem, here's how we think that it should be solved, or that sort of format. Also on the audience, one thing about JSPG is that the audience that you're writing for, you're going to tailor it to, is it going to be a policy audience? Is it going to be a scientific audience? Is it going to be a trainee audience? We are very focused on the policy side, but, if you can clearly identify that audience in your writing, it's going to make it much more clear and much more likely that it will be accepted for publication at JSPG. So a little bit on context, is it appropriately researched, have sufficient background? This is going to be really important in science policy writing, because something that I like to make sure that I communicate to folks as someone who works in science policy is that science policy itself is not a science. Policy is not a science, but so we may not be doing like a hypothesis-driven research. We're still using evidence, but you're going to need not just scientific evidence, but you're also going to want to be looking at, what about, is there data to back it up from society, from other kinds of sources? Is there, is it relevant to the current news or ongoing events? So you're going to want to make sure that you're not just including that scientific evidence, but that you're putting it in the broader context of science and society. And then detail, are you clearly outlining which policy options you want to propose? Or are you making sure that you're distinguishing between one and the other? Are you showing pros and cons? That level of detail is going to be important. But I think one thing that you're going to see if you look at the policy memos that are or other styles of policy writing that have been accepted in JSPG are issues in the past, you're going to see that it's going to be a different level of detail and a different types of information that's going to be presented than what you would have in a typical like academic style paper. Next, we're going to look at reasoning. Is there a clear reason for why you chose that policy issue? Is it a problem that needs to be solved? I think that's one thing in policy. It's always about solving a problem or preventing a problem from coming up in the first place. Like, you want to identify, why are you looking at this and why is it important and why should your reader care about it? And then finally, implementation. This is going to be a big one. We can propose all sorts of, policy ideas, but without an idea of, can it be implemented? What sort of things would be needed in order to implement this policy idea? All of that is going to be really important to make sure that you are touching on in a policy paper or a piece of policy writing that you're submitting for JSPG. So that's an overview. This is all on our website, but I just wanted to go over, like, these are the key things that our editors are going to be looking for in anything submitted for JSPG. Next, also wanted to just highlight our new issue that just dropped. Obviously it's the middle of the summer, but we were accepting articles in the winter, so it's the winter standards. So, but we have this new issue that just came out last month. I think, this issue was pretty exciting to read through. It's addressing a lot of key challenges across, whether it be climate resilience, digital infrastructure, public health, national competitiveness. Here's a few examples. I just pulled like a few screenshots because I didn't have enough room on a single slide to pull all of the ones that are in here. But you can just see that there is a really interdisciplinary range in the kinds of articles that were accepted for publication in this issue, ranging from elder care, equitable precision medicine, how are we approaching copyright law in the era of artificial intelligence, how can we regulate the use of artificial cigarettes around the world. All of these, it's a wide range of articles that we have in this issue, and I really encourage folks to take a look at it. So with that, I think we can move to some Q&A. Would love to hear like what you guys are excited to see in the journal coming forward, or if you have questions about it. But we're here as a resource for you throughout this process, and you have the next. Oh, I don't have my time on here, but yeah, the next half hour or so with us to ask any questions. So, Julianne, is there anything that you would like to add?
Really looking forward to the discussion. I'm going to subscribe to our newsletter in the chat, a direct link. Right. So, like Hannah mentioned, while there is a political science field, we don't want to say that public policy is not a science outright, right? That nexus of STEM with policy decision making, regulatory sciences and approaches. There is so much room for STEM experts to engage in the policy with the policymaking process and machinery that JSPG we're really proud to complement the work of organizations like NSPN in providing that avenue to contribute your ideas to the corpus of perspectives and insights and analysis of current affairs and solution making. And, there are so many differences between academic writing and policy writing, and NSPN has just an endless scrolling repository of posted courses, workshops, and other resources. But it is worth highlighting that, for policy writing, it's less about identifying the problem, and it's more about providing avenues to solutions. And I say very deliberately solutions, plural, in that, right, at any given moment, policymakers are dealing with countless factors, environmental factors, types of stakeholders. And when it comes to policy writing, right, to be as flexible as possible. There is a fantastic book. Gosh, what is his name? Cohen, I think is the last name. It's on environmental policy. It's like a Bible for those entering the environmental policy field. That essentially lays out 5 pillars, right? The 5 pillars of impact in policy decision making. And science is one of those 5 pillars, right? That in the policy decision making process, right? Whether the science is true, whether the facts are there, is certainly, right, a pillar of that decision. Also, engineering, right? Is it even feasible? Just because we can demonstrate fusion within the confines of the National Ignition Facility at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory doesn't mean that it is practical, right? We don't have the engineering to deploy that around the world quite yet. So those are only 2 out of the 5 pillars. The others are economics, right? Does it make fiscal sense, right? The policy solution concept. The political, right, is the legislative champion of a certain solution, representing a district in which they will be completely destroyed in the next right in the next election cycle because of the composition of their district. And then 5th is ethical. And those of us in the health sciences, and I would say even like quantum, right, understand the power of communities that have very strong feelings about certain scientific concepts. I had the privilege of chatting with the director of the Subaru Observatory in Hawaii. And she was humbled again and again by by the amount of energy that she needed to spend to bring the indigenous communities of Hawaii into the decision-making boardroom, right, as they were deciding about an expansion of the observatory or how they were using the land. And she is one of the greatest spokespeople now for that type of community engagement for what would otherwise be a pretty standalone scientific project, right? Developing and expanding an observatory. So, right, the 5 pillars, right? Don't just come with problems, come with solutions. And we at JSPG are also quite proud, right, to provide some support after publishing, whereby we often, not always, but we often create like a networking opportunity for the published authors. We are more than happy to connect authors with members of our advisory and governing boards to test out, right, how the ideas may play out in the real world. Um, we'll also support on occasion our wonderful director of media relations, Chung Wei, is regularly assisting authors in submitting conference session proposals. And we've had some extraordinary featured authors. Not this year's AAAS meeting, but previously we had one of our authors represent his paper on space elevator policy considerations. Even without submitting sessions, we've had a Canadian author present her work at the World Health Summit in Berlin last year. We were so proud. It was on, oh goodness, like maternal mental health policy decisions. So we are all for, and pointing to NSPN's, again, just extraordinary resources and how to create a one-pager from your policy idea for advocacy purposes. As we all well know that policymakers are not reading primary literature. It's a mere step toward, right, communicating those ideas to real-world policymakers. So thank you so much, Hannah, for running through the rubric. I'm sure answering a lot of questions that our audience was probably already wondering about. So happy to hand it back to you, to Pring, to moderate the remainder. Oh, excellent. Thank you so much for posting. Yeah, Stephen Cohen's book.
Yeah, we
And
have a
recommended.
question in the chat that asks how long between submitting, by the December deadline to getting published, typically?
A typical turnaround is about 4 to 5 months from submission. So, and I do see, so we have two different types of publications. One is our standard publication. We have 2 standard issues per year. And then on occasion, we will have a special issue. The standard issue is open to any topic, right? Any region, right? Truly anything. But the special issues, right, can be narrowly focused on an emerging science and tech nexus with public policy, or a particular region. We were so proud to partner with the Inter-Americas Institute for Global Change Research. This is 2 years ago now. It was our first translated issue as well, and that focused on right, the Central and Southern America region in terms of climate change impacts. We are so proud. Within the next couple of weeks, we'll be publishing a special issue in partnership with the Engineering Biology Research Consortium. I see Julietta Sheng is joining us today, a policy postdoc at EBRC, located headquartered in Northern California, but truly representing the global movement of synthetic biology and engineering biology. And that is focused on, right, the policy implications of synthetic and bioengineering, synthetic biology and bioengineering, and all that entails. And those deadlines come up on occasion. We're currently in conversations with a handful of organizations for an AI special issue, which you'll likely be hearing about in the next couple of months.
Great. Anyone have questions? You can come off mute. And if you don't, I do have a question. But if someone has a question, yeah, Jaywon.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity to sort of ask questions about JSPZ. So my question is about sort of the content that you discussed. You said it was supposed to be action oriented. Me and some of my colleagues have been working on this paper that is more of a landscape analysis of a current situation in a particular sector of science and technology area, and I was wondering if that would be something that can be turned into a paper in just JSPG and how to go about doing it possibly. And if I'm allowed the second question, I guess my question for the sort of a general um, for everyone really is how do we you know people who are interested in science and technology policy and people who are interested in science, period, how do we sort of navigate the overwhelming um, hostility toward science and evidence in the political world now? And that's yeah.
So I'm actually going to jump in on the second one because I'm participating in a training course, and one of the things that we actually display is that although there seems to be an attack, and there's definitely evidence that the presidential administration has reduced budgets for science orientations, trust in science overall is pretty stable within the U.S. and it fluctuates a little bit throughout countries. And it fluctuates just a little bit across political ideation. But I do want to dispel the myth that there's, no trust in scientists, lack of trust, it's damaged, because it seems to be relatively stable across, the last 8 years for the data that we're collecting. But as individuals, a lot of our jobs in the scientific community are going away in federal government. And so I can understand that sort of feeling as like, oh, what do we do right now? But I've been working for multiple, now I get to say at my senior career, multiple presidents in both parties, or I guess two of the parties, and just trust that there is a community, there is a widespread 300 million people that still really rely on scientists and our scientific expertise. Pass it to you for the detailed stuff.
Yeah, very short response. Yes, you are so welcome to submit a manuscript in that topic to JSPG. It's not outside the bounds of what we cover. And similarly, public policymakers, they need to be representing the populations of their districts, and with numerous districts losing federal funding because of the cuts to NSF, NIH, CDC, NASA, and others. There is some visibility that is growing, and you see it in the headline news and podcast episodes. We Yeah, Spring asked us at the outset of this event if we'd seen a bump in submissions, and we certainly have. Even just this morning, I received an inquiry about, would I be eligible for this, for the upcoming standard issue or not? What about this group of people? It's right, but we're glad to be that platform to provide that channel to engaging with public policy from a STEM background. And the more of us who are engaged, right, in policy conversations and in policy culture too, right? There's as much a culture in public policy as there is in academia, right? And being able to be a cultural ambassador, to be able to move both, right, to understand the language of both cultures is powerful. And we're hoping by exposing, especially early career folks, right, to this world of public policy, that you feel as entitled as you should feel to engage with your policymakers wherever you are. As right, this democratic system of the US's, at least, and numerous other countries, relies on proactive citizen engagement. and we don't see a whole lot of scientists representing the field, scientists or engineers representing their fields within the halls of state capitals or federal governments. So yeah, the world needs you. And it's through those informal conversations, right, contributing your ideas to that corpus of literature, right, is how we're going to get there. It's no silver bullet here. Hannah?
Yeah, I mean, Juliana to bring both put it very well, and I'll add that the landscape analysis is a landscape analysis on the science policy landscape is incredibly important, especially if people are going to be advocating about how cuts to science are impacting researchers on the ground, how policies are impacting the ability of trainees to pursue careers in science. All of that is going to to be based on what's actually happening. I mean, I think as scientists who are engaging in policy, we want to make sure that if we're saying like, oh, this is going to have a negative impact on science, or this is going to impact X, Y, or Z field in such a way, we want to make sure that that is rooted in, what's actually happening. So those landscape analyses are going to be incredibly important for advocates to make sure that when they are talking to policymakers, that they have the correct information and that they're able to give an accurate portrayal of what's happening in the science and technology landscape. So we'll add that that's incredibly important. And I think both Julianne and T'Pring really emphasize that, if scientists need to be having a voice in here, and I think that's where JSPG and NSPN and related organizations really play a role, is giving scientists the tools to say, here are different platforms where I can both learn as well as also publish and post work that I've done that I want to make sure is out there for people to read and engage with.
All right,
My
thank you.
question was, does it matter where they currently work? Do you have to be affiliated with a university at the time that you put in your information? Your
Oh,
post?
not at all. No, equal opportunity. So I see a question from Mary McDonald. Does the journal accept articles related to training, education, and scientific policy diplomacy? I ask because it's more education related rather than policy related. Oh, I cannot say yes more emphatically. In fact, we've had entire special issues dedicated to workforce development well, mostly in STEM, with occasional articles on science and tech policy specifically. So yes.
Great. 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 Thank you for joining. It is getting later on the East Coast, so understand if you do have to step away. If you have questions, of course, go to the journal. There's links, subscribe to the newsletter, but we can stay on for a couple more questions. Yeah, Bahar.
Hi, thanks for this presentation. I was wondering, I saw the word limits or the page limits. Is there places to do like graphics or figures?
Yes, there is, and many of our published papers do have some figures in there. So, and I think that's one of the nice things about digital publishing too, is that we aren't necessarily running into color ink restrictions. Yes, we figures, graphics, especially ones that can really add to the story and help to tell whether it be communicate data, communicate key points, or kind of illustrate the landscape of a policy issue. If that figure is really helping to communicate that in a clear form, we absolutely encourage figures.
Awesome, thank you.
Does that cost anything?
Julianne, I don't think so.
No.
No.
Open access and entirely free.
We,
Hence
like
the
I said, we
volunteer
don't
model.
have print. Yes. Like I said, we don't have printing costs, so that makes it a little easier.
Great. Any questions? My question to you all is what's preventing you from publishing?
Mhm.
We need you. We need, we in the more senior levels do look at this journal for ideas that we then pitch when we're in different consulting areas, for not only evidence of what to do next, what may be important that's being overlooked, but also as part of the evidence based on advancing policies based on the evidence. And so it's really important for us to get your research into this journal. And how can we help you do that? Our potential authors, before submitting, encouraged to reach out to you all to find out whether it's appropriate. Should there be like some pre-conversations with editors maybe beforehand? Or is this something that we can go into the black box of submission and feel like we can get a fair shake? Or is this sort of like a closed-doored system where we need to have a meeting before the meeting before the submission?
Yeah, so the review process is as objective as it comes, right? All what is it? Personally identified information is entirely redacted. We have multiple levels of review, starting with desk review, and moving on to first round, second round, right, final round. And the reviewers actually, the members of the editorial board will actually work with authors to get it to a place where JSPG would feel proud to publish. Occasionally it's just stylistic, right? On occasion there is some, backup reference material missing that might hold back a policymaker from leaning on that on the recommendations. Like I mentioned from the get-go, we are a very friendly bunch, so don't hold back from reaching out, but it by no means gives you extra points for during the review process. I would highly recommend, if you're considering submitting to JSPG, to read through, right? And many articles as you can possibly fit in, to appreciate the breadth, depth, and variety of topics and approaches. We accept between like 15 and 25% of all submissions. And so you'll see that those that are proudly published on our website are those that have made it through, and to take a lesson from the variety, the variations on policy solutions that are presented, which factors are considered, right, in the economic, political, ethical realm, in addition to the scientific and engineering, technological. Anything to add, Hannah? I mean, Hannah, right, as she introduced herself, right, was initially an author of JSPG before we recruited her to our director of programs and events. But would you like to speak more?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you have questions and you're like, is this a good fit? Like, definitely feel free to reach out, to just be like, hey, like, I just want to make sure that this is going to be in, up JSPG's alley. But like Julianne said, that's no means an expectation. Like Julianne said, the review process is anonymized. It is, it's supposed to be fair, and it's built to be fair and objective. But if you have questions, we're certainly happy to happy to help. And you can go to our website to find, tips, tricks of like, what are we looking for? Not tricks, but, the tips and recommendation for what we're looking for. And, if anything is unclear in that, we're happy to be a resource.
Yeah, I would say that it's something that might be a best practice just to touch base and say, like, hey, my topic is on concussion, but it doesn't have anything to do with like youth sports or youth. It has to do with like this really small population. Is this relevant? Right? That might be something where you just tag in before you spend any time checking with submitting it. But that is true across all journals. You should probably check in with a journal to see if it's well suited for the topic, just because there's some nuances between journals that are important. So to save you some time. Cool. Well, if you have barriers and you want to reach out to NSPN to talk about those barriers, or if you have questions and you want to reach out to JSPG, please. I'm really glad that you guys came today and are thinking about this more. And again, we need you. We need you now. We need your topics. You guys are all doing really cool things from those who shared their background in the chat. So thank you for joining today. We do have a couple more minutes if you have one or two more questions left. Oh.
You'll notice that I added our JSPG YouTube channel. It's fairly standard practice, although not always. We provide a writing workshop ahead of our special issues and occasionally our standard issues as well. So feel free to browse, especially to complement the extraordinary offerings from NSPN.
And I do have to say that last year was my first time really being introduced to GSPG, and we selected 5 articles that the NSPN team thought were really interesting and had some actionable recommendations. And we invited those people to give a webinar hosted by NSPN, announced by NSPN and JSPGs. And so it got quite a good audience of nearly 75, 80 or so that came to listen to their talk. So I encourage you guys to do that. You never know where some of your efforts may lead, and those are the things that advance you on your career. So use these as touchstones to really make sure that what you're doing is getting out and making the biggest impact as possible.
And I think something that, as someone who works regularly with scientists and students, right now is certainly a challenging time for many in the scientific community. And I repeatedly hear from students, from scientists at all career stages saying, like, what can I do? And I want to say, like, JSPG is a great opportunity for you to do something. You're getting your ideas out there. You can take that publication with you and send, whether you're going to meet with a policymaker, you're going to talk with other scientists who are engaging in this and say, like, here are my ideas. Can we put something into action? So I just want to say, if you're looking at this space and you're saying, like, oh my gosh, like, what do I do? I want to encourage you to see JSPG as one avenue for where you can take your work and you can put it out there and, take those first steps to making it real.
Great.
And before we're seen as a little too insular here, there are many other science policy journal opportunities. Many of the large publishers will have, right, on occasion, some policy articles, like Science and Nature will have, occasional policy papers highlighted. There are also, right, journals specific to environmental science and policy. Right, there are regional science policy journals. So don't think that if you don't publish in JSPG, that's your only option. In fact, especially in some of these more narrowly focused journals, there might be a ready-made audience for you there. So, don't hold back from Googling.
Yeah, and also, there may be limitations where I think Hannah described where you have to have 50% of early career folks are on the paper for JSPG, and that might be a limitation for you, right? You might be with, two senior professors and yourself, and then not make that eligibility criteria. So go into find your select, specialization, and oftentimes there are at least one or two opportunities in a year cycle to publish there as well. Because I think that another thing to highlight is that if you're doing, primary research, you can also, in addition to have this sort of impact policy oriented. So you can publish in your primary journal, and also publish like a secondary aspect of it in JSPG. Cool. Well, I am looking forward to seeing your guys' names in the applications to the opportunities at JSPG. And we will connect and get that list after the application period is over. And I would love to hear from you guys. Connect with us on LinkedIn. There's the saying, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And so we are with you together. Use all of our resources. Find us on LinkedIn. Ask us questions. We are happy to help at both NSPN and JSPG and CCST and MIT, and everywhere else that you can find our science policy network and community. Thank you for joining for today, and we look forward to seeing your career path. Thank you so much.